Okay, listeners, welcome to this conversation on Shorts. As you know, Shorts is a series of conversation with HR leaders across the spectrum, across industry, across geography, etc. And today I have with me a very special guest, the CHRO of Royal Enfield, which is obviously now not just the darling of the stock markets, but the darling of product designers and really a great story in terms of a comeback in a segment which is not the easiest of segments to come back in and create a new market actually in that sense. So Rajiv, welcome to this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. So, I'm going to have a conversation with Rajiv around succession management, which is one of his, favorite topics. And he has a passion around this topic. And he picked the topic and said, Bimal, this is a topic I'd like to talk about. So, Rajiv, let's launch straight in. What do you think are the practical, challenges, if you will, in implementing succession management, particularly at a senior level? Because, there's a lot of theory, there are lots of models, there are lots of software available, but companies still struggle. So where is it that you see the practical challenges in your, from your experience?
Sure. And I must clarify, whatever I'm going to say is more out of the overall years of experience versus Royal Enfield itself.
Right.
So one of the biggest things that we, have to keep in mind as far as succession planning is concerned, that it's a long-term, long horizon action item. Correct. So therefore, the moment you say, or the moment an organization says we commit to succession planning in all its earnest, there is a time phase and a time lag. Even on a running succession planning, if you're doing year on year and or whatever period or periodicity you do, there is this element of time horizon. Now, time horizon does several things. One is what organization needs from a particular role, what structure it would reach in 5 years' time and maybe 3 to 5 years' time. That itself could be changing. So you could have in the agile world, organization structures which change 3 years, 5 years, or shorter in some cases.
Right.
That's from the organization side. So therefore, what role is required? What are the deliverables of the role? So you're gunning for a particular role. So that is one. The second is from the individual perspective. From an individual, we said X person is on bench for a role which is this. Overall, what may happen that the person should also have the patience and remain committed to it. The person could jump ship, which happens once in a while.
Correct.
The opportunity for that role could happen much sooner than the person is ready for.
Correct.
When somebody attrition happens, for example, you're faced with that kind of challenge. Then you could also see that it's possible that the anticipated development has not happened. You're expecting that this time horizon is good enough for these capabilities in this individual to develop, and that hasn't happened. So multiple different things, and like many other HR processes, this is prone to various challenges and very, very sharply, so that you can be thrown off the guard in various different ways.
Correct. I think, just to pick up a couple of items you spoke about, about the agility part and so on and so forth. I'll come back to that in a minute. Why this topic also is important, Rajiv, is because particularly at senior leadership levels, as I see it, at least from my perspective, is that if you don't do this well, the risk in the value creation process for an organization is actually, significantly higher, unlike other HR processes, and therefore, I guess it requires maybe a special emphasis, which you don't always see in boards and, at that level. But what's been your experience generally, as you said, over the years, how much emphasis are our company putting on it? And are you seeing any evolution in that space, that any thinking change is happening?
Right. So one, and let me start from what you were articulating. It is one of the most critical processes that HR should drive with the senior leadership team, because it's like for the individual saying, what do I contribute today versus what can I contribute, 3 years time. So how do I keep sharpening the saw, as was said famously? Same for the organization. How do we sharpen the saw in terms of getting the right talent, which will be able to deliver in future?
Correct.
So if the focus is so much on current and this year, that focus can really be hurtful in the longer term, and not even longer term, actually midterm itself, it can start to show. So having said that, this is very, very important. The way I see it happening is that increasingly it is becoming important.
Mm.
And increasingly, it is becoming more fluid as well. So
Right.
let me start on the first one,
Mm.
where I see more and more organizations committing themselves to the task of succession planning, which has to be dovetailed into talent management, which has to have a bedrock in performance management. So the seamlessness of the entire thing,
Mm.
that is something which is coming up, and sharply so,
Right.
because this is something which is very important for everyone concerned.
Right.
Whether it is a shareholder, whether the shareholder is assured that over a long period of time this organization is going to be robust enough, or for the management to say, do we have the right talent to be able to deliver on our strategy as we visualized for the 3 to 5 year horizon. So that piece, I think, surely is becoming very, very clear and sharper. The other thing which is happening, and where there is more experimentation, I must say, and which is also the area that you play in, which is saying assessments of people. So you can go wrong, in multiple ways, as we were speaking earlier. If the pick that you choose for a particular role, particular position, there is error there itself. If the raw material itself has some unbridgeable delta, or a delta which is very difficult to bridge, then you can go wrong. And therefore, what you have assessed internally and what is the real picture. And of course, there's always always a divergence of what is the real picture. That could be very tough and damaging to the organization. So therefore, the organizations trying to say what is the combination that we must use: internal sharp assessment, external assessments that we should do to see that our judgment and our sharpness in identification of talent is very strong. The third, I would say, is more on the point of changing nuances, changing things. For example, the agility of how it should be. So if the competence that we know is to be developed, there are multiple ways of achieving the same thing, and perhaps multiple roles which will lead to that. So in a dynamic environment, as long as we have not, committed and cast in stone that this is the path to be followed, the organization, the environment, the developments will throw multiple opportunities to say what can be done for people to be developed over a period of time.
So that's an interesting perspective. Yeah. So Rajiv, if I go back, and you've been talking about agility several times, and all of us keep talking about this, that things are changing very quickly, and the business environment changes, so you can't really predict. 5 years is perhaps okay for a product development organization or for a pharma organization in product side of things, or R&D or whatever. But for the bulk of the organization, actually things change very quickly because of consumer preferences and so on and so forth. Are there ways which you would have either experienced personally or heard of? How do you make this process itself? And you talked about it in different ways, but how do you bring it to a discussion point, let's say every quarter or every few months, so that at least, even if not the leadership levels all the time, but particularly critical roles and technology kind of roles which are changing all the time, how do you make sure that these come up on the table as part of your, either as part of a talent review process or whatever? Are there any tips and tricks you have to make that conversation happen?
I must say, my trick is as old-fashioned as it can get. And the old-fashioned trick is to integrate everything.
Right.
So imagine, organizations doing a half-yearly assessments of its talent. So if you dovetail this entire thing, as we were saying, beginning right from performance appraisal to talent management discussions to succession planning discussions, a periodicity of 6 months, but you don't have to create an extra effort to say, now we'll pick up this topic and then run with it. It is a given, much like your business planning, financial planning, sales planning. There is people planning, which is completely part of your annual cycle of organizational processes. Then it will happen. And the other thing, I also equally say that there are functions which will require far more agility. There are functions which may not. But as an organization, my suspicion is that you will have to create an organizational rhythm rather than a smaller subset rhythm, such that it lasts, such that it is not dependent on our own excitement one day about one function and someday about some other function. But at an organization level, it is running in the blood of every people manager. That's my duty to get right talent to take up higher levels of responsibility. It is my duty to search for my own successor. It is my duty that I leave the organization more robust than what I've inherited. So that's a cultural paradigm which gets strengthened through the people and organizational process of going through that rigor every time. So whether it's a quarterly frequency, annual or 6 monthly, whatever it is, link it with that. And as I said, I mean, it's hardly a trick because it is something which is known that unless you do it over and over again, I would say that first year of running a talent management process will not lead to extraordinary outcomes. Perhaps the third one or the fourth one, that's where you would have, benefits of what you sow in the first year getting reaped in the third, fourth, fifth year or whatever. So it's that longer term view that I would really love to take on succession planning and talent.
No, but that Rajiv is interesting because, two things which, if I may point out of several things you said, one is to build an organizational rhythm and a consistency and a rigor which goes into the process over the years, so that, you keep getting fine tuned, you get your judgment better, you get the outputs better, you get your actions better, and so on and so forth. And I think, many HR processes have the same challenge that, we sometimes pick it up as a fad, and then, after 2 years we lose it, rather than, having that rigor and the consistency with the process. And particularly succession planning, I think is you can't get it done without that.
And longer the output cycle. So in this case, if I believe, or at least that's my articulation of 3 to 5 years, the output cycle, to do anything short term will not work. Maybe on a performance management in 1 year, you can achieve something.
Correct.
Which is 1 year cycle. Correct. Or compensation cycle, 1 year you could do something. But unless in this one, it has to be longer.
It has to be longer period. Yeah. So, another couple of, ideas, and I just want your take on it, kind of thing, right? So one is that, as we work with other organizations and all that, I think one of the things which has been talked about earlier, but perhaps not as practiced, I think companies are now starting at the leadership level to put like kind of a riskometer, if you want to call it that, that what's a risk of not doing this well, and I think at least, in the last year or so, I have come across a few organizations which are actually, it is the CFO's role as part of the overall governance process to put up a people and succession risk as a number, almost saying what's a risk on this kind of thing. And that seems to be, having some interesting effect in terms of people getting more cognizant of things. That's one. I think the other thing which is happening also is that in at least in 3 or 4 of the companies fairly recently in the last couple of years, actually as part of the CHRO role, which succession planning typically is, but I have come across where saying, the CHRO's role, 25% weightage in his performance is actually, or her performance is actually given to helping with succession planning, or, helping the leaders with succession planning, including development and, all of that other stuff. But, it's an interesting view because, and I'd like your take on it, because both on the risk side as well as, making the HR leader sort of significantly responsible for this, to facilitate the process, obviously.
Right. And I must say, on that riskometer, I haven't personally been part of organizations where there is a numeric value attached to risk. But looking at it from any which angle, the risk is very much, in terms of saying, how does our strategy get translated into action? If you don't have the right people, it will not happen, whatever we do. So therefore, that risk element, of course, is pretty high. The way to articulate that perhaps is about what is the strength of our successors or the talent pipeline. So for every role, how many ready people we have? It is quite possible if you've grown very fast, you won't even have 1:1.
Correct.
And, and which could be a serious risk. Same is the case over a period of time, unless you reach a situation where you are having at least, a couple of options for every role, you still have I would say, a relatively weak organization or an organization that lacks talent depth.
Correct.
So that's the attempt. Now, the question is, the more successors or potential successors you have, you also have more aspirations to take care of.
Correct.
More paths to create. How will they grow?
Correct.
This run the risk of losing people. But of course, as we all agree, that is a smaller risk versus not having ready people.
Correct.
So on risk, I mean, that's my take. And remind me of the second part you mentioned.
The CHRO getting almost an inflated KPI on succession.
Okay.
Sorry.
Also,
So yeah.
that again, I must say, I still haven't seen it, but to put in place a rigorous succession and talent management process is surely that I have seen very strongly being done. Perhaps it's about the longer cycle which prohibits it from keeping it there, because what you do great today or what looks great today, you know the benefit only after some time.
Correct.
So if the actions are only measured, then it's more the process that should be measured versus something which is getting over value in a particular year.
Yeah. No, that's an interest. So, are there there is Rajiv, on a slightly different tangent, if you will. Because of advent of technology and all that, over the last few years, we've seen many different software platforms and HRIS platforms and so on and so forth, which almost make you believe that succession planning can happen easily because you can put in a lot of data and you can track it and you can see org charts and so on and so forth on your computer and so on and so forth. But like you said, I am the old school, and I believe that there is a role of judgment, which ultimately, in spite of all the tools you use and everything else you may use and software you use and backbone, you can't take away the human element of judgment, particularly at senior leadership levels. And and that is an element which I see more and more, in a way getting underplayed, if you will. That people believe that by using technology and by using this thing, that you can almost reduce the element of judgment. In fact, I think that given the nature of the world, the element of judgment has to be even bigger, not taking away from the technology and other things. What's your take on that?
So technology is a distinctly a good enabler.
Yeah.
Much like it has enabled performance management or even a very transactional level, even attendance management or leave management. But performance management is enabled by technology. Similarly, career and succession planning through the right modules, through the right thing, because it provides you the right visibility at a click of a button, gives you all the right data that you could spend, agonizing time checking out with various people, etc. So the data readiness, so to say, to make the decision and judgment comes in handy. But the fact is, end of the day, those are enablers and they're not substituting for anything. In fact, the need for very sharp observation and therefore judgment remains as strong as ever.
Right.
There is nothing which will take it away. I think the evolution of this in technology space would be that first you are able to automate hiring through AI. Perhaps over 20 years time, then you could also automate who's the high potential through technology. But as of now, it stands the need to observe, interact, understand the depth of talent, and not go superficial by just the output and say, oh, X person has done fantastic in sales and therefore is a great guy and consistently. But get into details, get into depth, get into ideally somebody's view who has got absolute the first-hand view of the person, his views to be captured.
Right.
And therefore, judgment, I'm saying senior level judgment will be as accurate as the judgment of the first line manager who's evaluating. If that judgment goes wrong, then you of course keep drifting away from the reality.
Correct.
So across the organization, that whole piece of building talent, and I must say very happily we would say that bring out the best of people and the organization.
Right.
If that's the ethos that runs through the organization, then you of course have everybody doing the right assessments and putting up the right people for saying my leadership talent pipeline, I will feed in these people into the funnel.
Correct. No, that's a great way of describing that, because how do you create the funnel and keep improving the judgment at all layers, actually, in a way. So Rajiv, as we come to the end of this conversation, I think last question really. and you mentioned this, that when you look at it from an individual point of view, I think, there's a lot more onus on the individual to develop themselves, these days. And because, the company can provide only so much and so on and so forth kind of a thing. So, would you have any, examples or stories or, even your experiences about, how does the individual look at, becoming, if you will, a part of a succession pipeline, given that things are changing so quickly? For example, I could say that I want to do a marketing head's role, but then I realize that, by the time I start preparing myself, the role itself has changed. Or, the expectation from the role has changed dramatically, or the market has changed. So what would you advise to individuals, that how do they really come at it from their perspective?
On that, my motto has been, the Scouts motto is very useful there, which is be prepared.
Yeah,
So be prepared to seize the opportunity.
right.
For instance, the organization will always have multiple opportunities. For example, if I wish to pursue a particular track, I may not have an opportunity to do an immediate role change.
Correct.
There is always an opportunity where the organization can put you into a project, a cross-functional project, or some way by which you get exposure.
Right.
You can be an understudy, you can be mentored by someone, but I would imagine doing is the best way of learning.
Right.
So therefore, be ready to volunteer, be ready to raise your hand for anything that comes your way, which is leading into the direction that you wish to go. I always have believed, and I will continue to, that it is both ways. I would not say it is only employee responsibilities, employees' responsibility, of course, but organization has to be able to create mechanisms by which they can use the right intent to develop themselves and
Correct.
actually achieve that. And I must say we've tried that. And this year is a year we've tried to put a lot of people into cross-functional projects.
Right.
Get them exposure to areas which they have not even worked before. That's a real test. And once in a while you come across somebody you say, oh, I don't find to do that.
Correct.
That's then not the right way of approaching it. But the right way is to be prepared and just seize the opportunity.
No, I think that's a good tip, because what you said as a scout's motto, be prepared, I think is a great motto to have. A lot of people, I think, even at senior levels, I think, struggle how to do it. And while that's part of another conversation about how do you manage your career better and develop yourself kind of thing, but I think the how is still missing in a lot of people's plan. But I think you make a good point that if the company can provide at least a framework and environment, I think it can help the person in developing themselves in that sense. But yeah, so Rajiv, thank you very much. I think it's been a great conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will enjoy the conversation. And I look forward to talking to you again soon on maybe another topic. Yeah. So thanks very much.
Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.